Good evening, hope you're well. Did Sir Keir Starmer knowingly let someone with a criminal conviction into government while preaching to the nation about ethics? The resignation of his Transport Secretary, Louise Haigh, isn't the end of the matter, let me tell you that. And the PM is now under pressure to give the full facts. Shadow Cabinet Office Minister Alex Burkhardt has tonight demanded the PM come clean about when he first learned of Haigh's historic conviction for fraud. And he accused Sir Keir of ignoring Labour's own promise of running a squeaky clean government full of ethics and transparency. Louise Haigh admitted she reported her work phone stolen in 2013, only later to find it at home. And she described this as a genuine mistake and said she pled guilty to fraud in 2014 on the advice of her solicitor. And she claims Starmer was made aware of her conviction when she was given a job on the opposition front bench. Here's what the PM needs to answer tonight, or at least over the weekend. Is Miss Haigh correct when she says the PM knew all along? And if so, if he didn't see Louise Haigh's conviction as a disqualifying factor before her appointment to the Cabinet in July, why has it suddenly become one today? This is important because in 2022, Keir Starmer himself told the Commons that Boris Johnson couldn't possibly be a lawmaker and a lawbreaker, and he had to go.
The values symbolised by the door of number 10 must be restored. The game is up. You cannot be a lawmaker and a lawbreaker. Only then can the government function again. Only then can the rot be carved out. Only then can we restore the dignity of that great office and the democracy that it represents.
And by the way, I know she's gone now, but what a raging hypocrite Louise Haigh was too.
This has been such a sorry saga for Boris Johnson and for our country. First he claimed that no parties took place at all in Downing Street. Then he claimed that all the rules were followed. Now we know that that was a complete lie. Our position hasn't changed. This is a matter of trust and leadership. He has clearly repeatedly lied to the House of Commons and to the British people. And the only question he should now answer is when he will resign.
OK, well, for the record, I don't think Louise Haigh should have ever been forced to resign at all, but she falls victim to the very low bar she and her party set during the hounding of Boris Johnson during Partygate for essentially eating crusty M&S sandwiches. You set the silly standard, now you're out of a job. But the focus now is on the Prime Minister. His government has been fighting so much sleaze, cronyism and scandal in its first 6 months that they make the Tories look like amateurs. Arsenal tickets, Taylor Swift tickets, £2.5 spectacles, a wardrobe for his wife, multi-million-pound penthouses, stuffing the civil service with Labour donors and aides, the Chancellor accused of lying on her CV, a row with farmers, dunking on pensioners, it goes on and on. So the big question is, did the Prime Minister cover up the truth about Louise Haigh? And if so, what else is he covering up behind the curtains of number 10? Before getting reaction from my panel tonight, let's get the latest from this storm surrounding Louise Haigh and indeed Sir Keir Starmer from our political editor, Christopher Hope.
Election is nearly 5 months ago and already we have our first resignation from the Cabinet of Keir Starmer's government. Louise Haigh, the Transport Secretary, has stood down, resigned, replaced by Heidi Alexander. Louise Haigh has gone because reports emerged that she had pled guilty to making a false report to police about a stolen mobile phone that she later discovered. But the question right now in Westminster is, what did Keir Starmer know about this conviction? According to Louise Haigh, he was told when she entered the Shadow Cabinet in 2020. Fast forward to July this year, she becomes the Transport Secretary. What did Sir Keir Starmer know then when it happened? We understand that Louise Haigh did not declare this conviction to Whitehall as part of her transparency process when she became the Transport Secretary, and disclosing to senior civil servants anything which may have a direct or an indirect impact on the work she was doing. Number 10 say that the reason why she had to go is the full facts were not known, and the full facts became known with this reporting overnight into Louise Haigh's background. But I think this weekend there are questions about what Sir Keir Starmer knew. Was he told the full story by Louise Haigh? Her friends say she did tell the full story back in 2020, and if so, why on earth was she given a role as Transport Secretary with an oversight role to a small degree of the British Transport Police? Those are the questions, I think, for Sir Keir Starmer this weekend as he contemplates his first removal, his first resignation from his top team since he won power back in July this year. Christopher Hope, GB News, Westminster.
Using the internet without a VPN is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. We want to help protect you. This video's sponsor, Private Internet Access, is the VPN to help keep you safe. Now, you might be asking, what is a VPN? Well, a virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and safeguards your internet connection through an encrypted tunnel. This way, it shields your digital life from the eyes of those that are looking to exploit your private information. Whenever you connect to the internet on a public Wi-Fi network, such as at airports, coffee shops, friends' houses, or even in your own home, your data is at risk of being stolen. Hackers that are connected to the same Wi-Fi network have the ability to steal your personal data with ease. T-Mobile reached a settlement this year with the US Federal Communications Commission after they suffered data breaches in 2021, 22, and 23. In 2023 alone, over 37 million customers' data was exposed. And it's not just hackers to be concerned about. Information can be censored. When Canada passed their C-18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news content that you love. Private Internet Access is available for all platforms: Windows, macOS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one Private Internet Access subscription to protect an unlimited number of devices at the same time. Plus, we've got a huge GB News discount. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get 83% off PIA. That is under £2 a month, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free. There's also a 30-day money-back guarantee. So head to piavpn.com/GB News to start protecting yourself digitally today.
OK, so there we go. Did he know or didn't he know? This is going to be the big question, really, of the next coming weeks and months. I'm joined now by political consultant Suzanne Evans, podcast host and broadcaster Will Kingston, and the journalist and communications consultant JJ Anisobi. Good evening,
Hi.
Friday panel. Welcome along. Suzanne Evans, what do you make of all this? Louise Haigh gone, fine, see you later. What a hypocrite. But the pressure now, as far as I'm concerned, is on Keir Starmer.
I have to say, I'm really pleased finally somebody in this shambolic cabinet has resigned. Your monologue, Ben, was brilliant, exposing all the stuff they have done wrong. And I frankly can't understand why there haven't been umpteen resignations up till now, because it's been such a disaster. But there you are. Finally, one of them's gone. It's Louise Haigh. And, yeah, she had to go. Now, did Starmer know or not? She says he did. He says he didn't.
Who's telling porkies?
But I have to say, I think if you are a man who is a Prime Minister, a former Attorney General and a top lawyer and a top prosecutor, how could you not have known what was going on here? How could you have appointed somebody to your cabinet who he must have known that she had a criminal record and didn't look into that? What also I find gobsmacking is that this criminal record happened 6 months before Louise Haigh became a Member of Parliament. How the heck did she manage to stay on the ballot paper, to still be a candidate and to become a Member of Parliament, despite the fact that her local Labour Party must have known that she'd had this conviction? It is shocking. It's a massive cover-up. It's a disgrace. She should never have been an MP.
But I think the only disqualification would have been if she'd served 3 months or more in prison. She didn't serve any time. But you can disagree with it, but that's just the rules.
You can talk about the rules and the
MP,
but the optics are terrible.
The optics are terrible.
She was a member of Parliament. Reform have got an
MP who went to juvenile detention for kicking his girlfriend around the floor.
Yeah, but James McMurdoch isn't a cabinet member.
No, I'm saying no. But I'm saying in terms of becoming an MP, you can't say how did she become an MP when there's people who have criminal convictions who are also MPs.
And I think it's wrong.
Yeah. And I don't think the reason I don't think she's a hypocrite is because this happened. She didn't do this when she was on the job. This was in her past. I believe in the British justice system. She did a crime. She served that penance for it, and now she moves on with her life. If it had to miss when she was an MP, I think it's hypocritical for you to commit a crime when you're an MP and then have a go at Boris Johnson for something as well.
I even think most people on the right would agree with you, but that's not the point here. The point here is that Starmer has built his whole brand in absence of any charisma or any values or any decent policy. He's built his whole brand on this whole I'm a prosecutor, I'm going to clean up Westminster attitude.
Yeah.
And in the first 100 to 120 odd days, where it feels like 5 years, we've already seen so many examples of sleaze, of corruption, now of him literally breaking his own pledge to say if you're a lawbreaker, you can't be a lawmaker. And it's very obvious, and I think we'll get into this, that he did know. And if he did know, it just shows the hollowness of this man, the sheer hollowness of this man.
If he did know, he is now engaging in a cover-up because he is actively telling the press and the public, the great British public, who some voted for him, that he didn't have any idea about it. But not only did he know, and he allowed her in government and in the shadow cabinet, he is engaging in deceit now as well. I mean, that's what you're saying if you're saying he did know.
Well, let me do a Keir Starmer. Let me give you some evidence to the court. Number one, the way that they're framing this to say the full story has come out now. Like they're trying to say, well, obviously they knew something. Number two, political operatives in Westminster do their background research on cabinet ministers. And number three, Westminster talks. There is absolutely no way that they did not know about this before she became a cabinet minister.
Suzanne, so my next question to you is, who is the Labour MP, Keith Vaz? They used to call him Teflon Keith, is it?
Yeah.
So many scandals. There was the washing machine.
The washing machine salesman, the gay parties, all sorts of stuff.
He seemed to survive nuclear apocalypse, but Keir Starmer, it seems a bit Teflon as well. When are one of these scandals going to really dent his premiership? Because he's had so many so far, and he seems to just be cracking on.
Well, I think that's the thing, isn't it? Really, in the old days in journalism, you used to say, "Well, never mind about bad news stories because it's tomorrow's fish and chips, and people forget in about 3 days." But of course, now we live in a very different age, and it's on the internet forever. So that rule no longer applies. But I think there's something about being able to brazen it out and just keep going and keep your head up high and you get away with it. I mean, of course, the other story we've got rumbling on in the background is Rachel Reeves' CV.
Well, yes. So if Louise Haigh is going to go for this, why shouldn't Rachel Reeves go for
absolutely.
her Mr.
You
Leave?
can't say you're an economist when you worked in customer services and get away with it, or you shouldn't be able to. But I think she's going to get away with it.
I think if Starmer had come out and said, I'm backing Miss Haigh and I'm going to keep her in the cabinet regardless, then I think this would be something that would be more trouble for him. But the fact that he essentially has forced her to resign, then it's a case of, all right, it's done. So it's kind of done. So if we can assume everything, but he is saying he didn't know the full story. That's what he's saying. He didn't know the full story. So presuming that he's telling the truth and he didn't know the full story, he is since he has found out the full story, he's acted correctly.
How can a man who's a lawyer not know the full story when he could have access to the court records?
I know, but listen, he's the leader of the party. As you know, he would not have gone through it himself. He's got 1,000 other things to do.
Right.
Someone in his team, someone whose job is to look through Miss Haig's stuff, will have looked through it.
Let me ask you this then. If it does come out in the coming days and weeks that Starmer did 100% know about this conviction when he elevated Louise Haigh to the shadow benches, does Starmer need to go? Because as I said to Will, he would have been involved in a cover-up by, at this point, saying...
I think he would need to go based on his own high standards. Yes, he would need to go. Yeah. Because if he didn't, then that would be hypocritical of him, 100%. But I think politicians need to, like the days of Keith Vaz, we need to get back to those days when people could make mistakes. And politicians should not be shouting across the floor, you should resign, you should resign. Someone does something wrong in politics, instantly, you should resign. Unless it's a real heinous crime, we should not be calling for politicians to resign. They are not priests. They are still just normal people like the rest of us.
But they have to be held to a higher standard, JJ. I'm sorry, they're just not normal people like the rest of us because they put themselves above the rest of us. They make laws over the rest of us. They tell the rest of us what to do. I'm sorry, we have every right to hold them to a higher moral standard, I think.
It was Labour. It was Labour and their friends in the media who set this very stupidly low bar for moral conduct in Parliament. chasing Boris Johnson. I know it was Chris Pincher that was the cherry on the cake, but chasing Boris Johnson for stumbling into a gathering in Downing Street during the height of COVID, eating some crusty M&S sandwiches.
It wasn't just for him attending the parties because he lied about it as well. He was involved in a cover-up of it. But about the politicians who've then come out previously and said they've indulged in drug-taking, illegal narcotics when they were younger, should they be allowed to serve? Where do you draw the line? They haven't served any time in prison, but should they be allowed to serve?
Yes, I think so.
I actually really enjoy this whole saga because the moral puritanism that the left indulges in, like, it's so fun seeing them hung up by their own petard, you know, in this day and age. You can excuse Boris because he was, you know, a mountebank, because he was outrageous, but it's the joyless awfulness of someone like a Keir Starmer. That's why it makes this so enjoyable
the
to watch.
holier-than-thou attitude and the virtue signalling and the moral supremacy. It's like, give it a rest.
They've brought it on themselves.
Which is exactly why, if it's found out that he's covering up, he should go. Tony Blair said in his recent book that Labour should be very careful about slinging mud at the other side, because if you sling mud at the other side, you've got to sling it yourself when you mess up too.
Indeed. OK.
Bring back Blair.
Oh, no.
Yeah!
I don't know about that. Halloween was a few months ago, Jay. It's Christmas now.